To me, the Prelude of Suite Number 2 in D minor by Bach is a wonderful vehicle to show how expressive and beautiful that the viola can sound. I love it that it starts on the D string and then moves to the A string, and finally at the end of the first line moves to the G string. It gives us three different flavors of the viola: the D string, the A string, and the G string. If we only tried to show our audience that the viola's strings each have their own character and color, the piece works almost by itself. We can hear the richness of the G string, the upper piercing warm sound of the A string, and the velvety color of the D string. One of the things I really love to do when playing the instrument is to show people what the beauty is of a viola. These different strings have a different character. Sometimes I think of animals, that the C string can be dark and roaring like a lion, while the A string can be like some sort of a bird singing, and everything in between. When we think that way, it's a very good way of giving character to an instrument. The piece is improvisatory in a way that it kind of meanders around, and it gives me the good chance to show the whole range of the instrument. So if you notice while I'm playing, you can hear that there's a real ebb and flow to the music. There's certain characteristics of Bach that I always try to show. One of them is that he loves to group things in threes. So I'm always looking for things that are grouped in threes. Even the first three notes of the beginning can be considered a group. Like that, and then it comes back in a different key. It's wonderful. You also get the feeling so on that first line alone, we have several groupings of threes. I can't count them. I should have counted them before, but it doesn't matter. Just the fact that I'm going to try to show all of those groupings in threes. I make my bowings accordingly to show very clearly the threes. Some people think that those threes are the Holy Trinity, because Bach was, of course, a very religious man, and I kind of agree with that the Holy Trinity can be expressed in Bach by showing the groupings of threes. Another thing that characterizes Bach's music to me is the use of sequences. A sequence is the same thing, whether it's a rhythmic thing or a melodic thing or a combination of rhythm and note melodic thing that repeats itself but possibly going down by step. The second line of the piece, at least in my edition, is a wonderful example of a sequence which goes from a B flat to an A to a G, and basically has the same rhythm and note pattern through each of those bass lines. So like that. Whenever I have those sequences, I make it a point to show that to my audience. The more clear that my musical ideas are, the more the audience will understand what I'm trying to play. Let's just go back for a second and talk about how to use fingerings, because the beginning of this piece is wide open for fingerings. Today I chose to use a fingering of 0, 1, 3 at the beginning. Sometimes I go 0, 2, 4. I think it should be a goal of every player that whether you put down your fourth finger or your third finger, that they sound exactly the same. But unfortunately, most of the time, that doesn't really happen. I find my third finger to come down just a little bit stronger on the string than my fourth. Therefore, my fourth finger gets a little bit of a darker sound on the A. That's not all bad. But you have to make a choice which one that you like. If you listen really carefully, you probably can hear that the third finger comes down very quickly. The fourth finger, I tend to want to place the finger more, so you'll get a more velvety sound. Although it's a little darker. It's a question of not only preference, but what you feel like playing that day. It's a great idea at the beginning of this piece to think of several fingerings, and then once you get very comfortable playing the piece, to make a choice just before you play it, to have a little bit of spontaneity when you're playing. Another idea of fingering that I really like sometimes, I guess maybe not right now because I didn't do it, but is to use an open A string and an open D string, which to me symbolizes the piece being very open. So actually, come to think of it, while I'm playing at that time, my mind was telling me that it makes a lot of sense to play that open A string, because if you listen to the melodic line, I have the top of a D minor harmonic scale, and that A there really leads to the B flat, which makes more sense than to play something like... It keeps the color the same on the string. And so it makes sense to do things like that. Some people don't like that. They say, why do you play an open A string there? But I always feel, well, I have a reason why I'm doing it. If I have a reason why I do something, I feel very comfortable doing it. Let's listen to that again. Going back to those first three notes, I think we could talk about the first three notes for hours. Bow distribution. I see a lot of people play like this. The problem with doing that is that when the first two notes are eighth notes, and the third note is actually a dotted quarter note. Oh, no, it's not. It's a quarter note tied to a 16th note. But I'm using the same amount of bow for all of them. That means that I'm definitely going to have a color change, because my bow is going to move much faster on the eighth notes than it does on the quarter note. So it's going to put a little stall on the quarter note. If you listen carefully, you can hear that. You can hear that I kind of lose control on that A. So what I do is I use very, very little bow and really, really work my upper arm and my fingers so that the eighth notes come out very smoothly. And that gives me the opportunity to really grow the A. More on that in a second. I just said grow the A. I love to grow notes. We always use that word organic. It's kind of a catch word. But when you think of a note, if it has a life to it, which it's great if it does, then that note can grow. And the note needs to have a constant variety of bow speeds and pressures and contact points during the note to really let it grow. Let me see if I can demonstrate the growth of these longer notes. When I get to this spot, I again try to show that trinity, the 3 notes at a time, and also try to show the depth of the instrument on the C string. Over there you can hear that there's another sequence coming when I play. After that landing, I go through a little transitory passage that leads me to another big sequence. Here comes the sequence. There I land on a C sharp, which is the 3rd of the dominant. That means it's the 3rd of an A major chord, which means it's probably about the middle of the piece. A good fingering for this passage looks like this. 2nd finger. 1, 1. 2nd finger. That more or less brings us to 2 sequences, the first of which starts in the key of A. The second of which is I really love this section because I get to show off all of those ranges of the viola again, starting on the G string, going to the D and the A string. And then the little flourish that comes after that is so beautiful. When learning the music of Bach, I generally recommend to learn the music without really listening to any recordings and getting a feel for how you feel about the music. I think it's really important when playing Bach to kind of put a personal stamp on the music. I know that there's a lot of style that we have to think of and that there are rules and this and that, but one of the beauties of playing this music is that you can put your own personality into it and you can make up your own ideas. There are no set rules. Bach hardly wrote any dynamics in the music, and all those dynamics that you put in really can come from your heart. After you figure out some ideas and how you really think the music should go in your own mind, then you can start listening to recordings. I recommend listening to 2, 3, 4 different recordings and seeing what you like. After you have your own ideas, then you can take your ideas and enhance them with ideas that you learn from other people. We all can learn from each other. I love the way that Rachel Podger plays this music. She plays it on the violin and has a little bit of a different feel than a violist or a cellist would, but it is so beautiful. And she plays it on a Baroque violin with a Baroque bow. So we get a really good perspective of what this music may have sounded like many years ago. It is very beautiful. I love the playing of Lillian Fuchs. She is such an icon in the viola world, and really studying this music as a violist would be empty, I guess, without listening to Lillian Fuchs. So whether you think it may be a little romantic sounding or, the style this or that, it is so touchingly beautiful the way that she plays the viola. And she makes these pieces her own. And it's so valuable to hear that, and it's a blessing that we're able to hear her do it. I love the cellist. I don't know how to say his name right, but I'll say K-Ra. I'll spell it here next to me. And he plays the cello, and he plays it absolutely beautifully. And of course, the person that made these pieces famous was Pablo Casals, so it's always worth giving him a listen. And there are many other cello players, viola players to listen to and to think about ideas that we may have.